Well, not quite that. House building has indeed suffered its sharpest slump since the pandemic last month, in a major blow to Labour's ambitions to build, baby, build, and deliver 1.5 million new homes. Experts warn tax hikes and red tape are to blame.
Well, it comes as planning permissions for new homes are not up. They're down by 19%. Just astonishing, with the Housing Secretary accused of surrendering to NIMBYs. Those are campaigners who don't like it in their backyard.
Indeed. I'm not going there. OK, we're joined now... Stop it, Tom. We're joined now by Head of Policy and Market Insight of the National Federation of Builders, Rico Wojtulewicz. Rico, good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. I mean, Rico, what's going on here? We were promised build, baby, build. I mean, sort of like, you know, how many millions of new homes were Labour going to build? That's not happening, is it?
No. I'm going to be realistic as a starting point in the fact that, you know, your last speaker was very interesting there. Businesses are being hammered, and new regulations, particularly on wages, are really, really impacting everybody. And April is going to be a devastating time for many businesses, particularly construction. But construction's got loads of new regulations coming through. And actually, construction plans 2, 3, 4 years ahead. So a lot of the permissions, I'm going to defend the government as a starting point, and then we'll carry on. But a lot of the permissions that they're delivering now are actually Tory permissions. And I noticed you had Michael Gove up there, the original NIMBY, who unfortunately put so many policies in place that stopped homes being built that Labour have spent the last 18 months unpicking them. Now, is that enough for me to say they're doing a good job? No, because the reality is, I would argue they should have been prepared for all of this at the start. You know, they immediately came through and changed some planning policies without any consultation. Others have taken a lot longer, and you have a consultation, then a debate, and then it goes through the House of Commons, and then it becomes law. By that time, you're a business. That could take 2 years. It takes 2 years to get 18 months to get planning on a site of 50 homes, and then longer to get all the conditions in place so you can start building. 1.5 million home target was always impossible, and that's probably why the last government and other parties always say 300,000 a year, because they hope to get to that target one day annually, rather than 1.5 million, which by year one is already 360,000 homes a year.
But Rico, these numbers are astonishing. We speak very often to Labour MPs, and I am always surprised, genuinely surprised, that they think that they are actually doing things. They will genuinely say, if you ask a Labour MP, well, what is this government doing? They say, well, we're getting Britain building again. They don't even know that the number of new housing starts is down, not up, that planning permissions are down, not up, that in London in particular, there's almost a building freeze going on right now. I mean, the gulf between the rhetoric and the reality has never been wider.
Yeah, so the last 4 months, I would say, I feel quite comfortable with the fact that they've started to engage with industry. It's taken quite a while for them to realise that, but, you know, we've had changes to the policies on the Building Safety Act and the Building Safety Regulator to get projects through more quickly, not just on the regulation side, but more staff to help with that. We've recently had an announcement for the National Planning Policy Framework, which is supporting more smaller developers, because remember, they're the ones that deliver quickly. The large sites can take a decade to get over the line.
On the Building Safety Regulator, this is a regulator that was only set up a couple of years ago, that is meaning that even people who want to refurbish their homes in some cases are having to wait almost a year to get sign-off from this regulator. There are cases of people who have ground floor flats who need the sign-off from the safety regulator because their building is tall and they can't install a new window without that sign-off. I mean, if this government was serious about banishing the blockers, it wouldn't just tinker with this regulator, it would abolish it.
Well, if you also remember, there was a second review, and before the old system was in place, they already agreed to changes to that system. So while everyone was preparing to get used to that system, a new one has been promised, so that created more complexities and more delays. Abolish, I think there are lots of problems with it. There are obviously issues that need to be considered. Has it gone too far? Well, I think if you speak to some of the fire associations that consider some of the safety elements, perhaps they've not been listened to enough. And I heard you talk about second staircases in the past. The US has just got rid of second staircases. There are ways to deal with these solutions that perhaps the industry hasn't been listened to, because there are maybe some, I don't know, politically expedient conversations that take up a bit more of the time. And unfortunately, if you go that direction, you are not going to build stuff. And it's not just about houses, it's schools, roads, rail. You know, investors that want to come to the UK are not going to spend millions of pounds if they can't get any projects off the line. They can't build a manufacturing plant. They can't connect up the workforce to their employment. That hinders the country hugely.
Rico, I was going to mention the point about the actual workforce when the government came in and promised this, and we pointed out that there weren't the tradespeople to do it in any case. I mean, we certainly didn't have enough builders, plasterers, scaffolders, all the people that need to do the actual hard work on this one. How is this affecting the people actually on the ground? They're the men and the women that are actually out there at 6 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold weather, up the scaffolding. How's that going?
Yeah, it's brutal. And so 8 in 10 construction apprentices are trained by small and medium-sized companies. You know, that's like a house builder building up to 200 homes a year, who either directly employ or has a supply chain that they always work with. And they are being hammered so much because they can't then train new people. And what's interesting about that is that somebody that, say, works for a company then sets up by themselves, either self-employed or their own company. So it's a real chain. And because those companies have gone under, and many of them are going under, you then lose that capacity. What they have greater pressure on the existing companies. Then, if I'm honest, we've kind of gone for the bigger companies who never train and retain typically, especially not in the trades. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, a failure. You know, a stat I recently used is we train more when SME house builders built 40% of homes, around 40% of homes, we trained more carpenters and bricklayers than we do entire construction apprentices today, where we build 9% of homes, SMEs build 9% of homes. Unless you understand the business model, the retention model, the actual from start to finish approach, you can train 1 million people to do the jobs, but there are not 1 million jobs. You're not going to solve anything, and that still impacts then the investors who maybe want to come in and do some works and find, I can't find the workforce to do it. I can't find enough people to kind of, so say if you're in the green sector, you know, it's a big sector at the moment. If you're the only people doing a component and the other component manufacturers in a different country, let's say Europe, well, where are you going to stick your money? In Europe, where you can kind of create a big business model that's regional, or the UK, where you're treading water before you actually got anywhere.
And so often it's about that production line. It's about the predictability, being able to go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. With our crazy system where you don't know if you're going to get approval or not, as opposed to many other countries where actually you can have a predictable line of, then you can train people. Rico, we could talk about this all day, but thank you so much for joining us and talking through what a disaster current building policy is in Britain.
So let's add builders to farmers to pub landlords to pensioners to everybody else that doesn't seem to be doing terribly well under this coming in for change for the working people.
Well, we've got some breaking news to bring